Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Akins.
Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be discussing debunking the misconceptions of hypnosis and discovering the benefits. I said a lot there. Well, Doug is going to explain this all to you shortly. So let me introduce you to my guest, Doug Sands. He's a consultant hypnotist who helps individuals overcome anxiety and fear. He also is the host of Making Meaning podcast, a show that interviews adventurers about the struggles they've overcome in their journey. So welcome and thank you. How
Absolutely.
are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing very well tonight.
Okay, so I know that, a lot of people, we hear about hypnosis or hypnotherapy, and a lot of people there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And I think for many people like myself, we lack the information. We want to understand what is hypnotherapy and what isn't, if you can help us educate us today.
Absolutely. A lot of people have misconceptions about what hypnosis is because we've only seen it as a comedy routine. And we don't really have that idea as a hypnotist as someone who is helping you to make some powerful changes. Whereas hypnosis for making those changes, it's still the same basic concepts.
Okay.
But once you get someone to that state where they are more suggestible, as we often hear about it, you're using tools from psychology and neuroscience to actually make those changes. And in that receptive state, you're more likely to make those changes. And that's the essence of how it works.
So then, is this science-based? Because what I'm seeing is I hear a bit of it, but you know what? Let me not speak for you. Please answer the question, dear.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got about 150 years of science behind it. Hypnosis has been studied in Europe for over a century. I mean, we've been really learning what it is about the mind that really creates these states. So we've been researching the brainwave patterns behind it. And just to touch on those a little bit, when you are in hypnosis, your mind is actually slowing down. It's going closer to sleep. Your brainwave patterns are dropping from beta frequency, which is our normal everyday waking state, down through alpha to theta. And that's that really deep creative state that you sometimes go through right before falling asleep.
Okay.
And so while hypnosis is not sleep, it does tend to look like that. And the science behind how hypnosis works is that by getting to those deep creative states, you are more able to access parts of yourself that are not typically available, because otherwise,
like your subconscious, like you allow yourself to come. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Your subconscious or your unconscious part of your mind, those parts of you that are really running the show. And to give an example, when you're driving a car, you're not consciously thinking of every single thing that's happening around you, every turn, every car in your rearview mirror. Your unconscious is constantly keeping tracks of all of those bits of information. And so it's always listening, it's always ready to help you. And hypnosis is simply about getting to that state where you can intentionally shape the way your unconscious reacts.
Okay, so what I understand, and if you can correct me, is technically a lot of changes happen on a deeper level. So right now, like this is my, like I think I'm physically here and mentally here, but you can debate that against me. But I think what you're saying basically is when somebody hypnosis is when you have the opportunity to go to your subconscious mind, and that's where a lot of ticks or a lot of like core values or core habits are there that we can actually maybe you guys can address for us and make small changes so we can make that help us initially in health wise, like physically, mentally, or emotionally. And those are things that you guys offer, and that's how someone can benefit from consider using hypnosis. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely. So much of what we do is about changing the habits, the motivations, as well as the unconscious responses. To give an example of that, if you've ever sat down in your car without thinking about it, you put on your seatbelt, you adjust the mirrors and everything. Those are unconscious responses to a stimuli. And some people have these in a negative sense. Like if someone has a fear of dogs, every time they see a dog, they start sweating. Or if they have a fear of heights they want to get over, every time they go in a tall building, they start panicking. Those are the same concepts, like they're unconscious reactions to stimuli. And in hypnosis, we can intentionally change those by offering the brain different solutions to those problems.
So then I guess another question to you would be, is a lot of people see as like maybe kind of alternate health or not real benefits. For those people that are a little bit in disbelief, what can you say that will alleviate their concerns of basically, considering hypnosis? Because you see those stories before you go. You see those people like magic show. They make them quack like a duck. Like a lot of people are scared. Some people are scared. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I always say that the people on a comedy show or a magic show, they volunteered to be on that stage. They knew beforehand they were probably going to do some ridiculous things, and that was part of that unspoken contract with the hypnotist. You're not. I mean, if you go up there and you don't do anything at all, what's the fun in that? And so they expect to do that. That's not what happens in therapy. When someone comes into a change work session, they're not expecting to bark like a dog. They're expecting to get over a fear of flying or lose weight. And so that's what happens instead. I always tell people that hypnosis is simply working with your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind has two goals. It wants to keep you safe and it wants to keep you happy. Our unconscious mind, the root of it is that fight, flight, or freeze response, that reptilian part of our brain. And if at any moment in hypnosis, someone violates that trust that you have built up with a hypnotist and that person no longer feels safe, that is going to bring them out of trance. So the idea of mind control, it's simply outdated. And as someone who's looking at, the science and the credits behind hypnosis, I would recommend they check out just how many different organizations have backed up hypnosis. It was approved by the British Medical Association way back in 1892. Wow. It's been approved by the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association. It's even approved by the National Cancer Institute as a methodology for improving the success rate. Absolutely.
Okay. You might have considered me consider because I am one of those people that are afraid. I am because I think you spend a lot of years watching a lot of magic shows or even on TV, and then you hear stuff and you don't want that to happen to you. It's subconsciously unnecessary fear. Okay. Yeah. But I appreciate you mentioning this because I think on a serious note, I believe a lot of people should be open to at least considering it. Because I think the reason why I say this, and you can correct me, is everybody tries different things. Not everything works for somebody, but it doesn't hurt if you're telling me that, that it is safe, that you do have a mechanical, I think, fight or fear, that if somebody does, that you can open up or wake up. That's what I'm looking for. Wake up from whole strands. I appreciate that. I think because we mentioned that you were a consulting hypnotist, right? And are there different types, or there are different? I'm not familiar with your industry, so educate me.
So there are two avenues you can take hypnosis in. There's the comedy field, the stage show, or there's change work, there's therapy. And the word therapy is kind of a touchy topic because to be a therapist and to do therapy, you technically have to be licensed and have to go to school for that. Whereas to be a hypnotist, you don't. A lot of hypnotists will call themselves hypnotherapists while they are not licensed therapists. And so they're risking a lot of legal pushback if someone wanted to pursue that. I call myself a consulting hypnotist because while I do what a lot of people call hypnotherapy, I'm simply avoiding that legal jargon.
I appreciate that. And that's respect. I think it's nice to know there's a difference. And if somebody was interested in reaching out to you to maybe understand more about what you can offer, what's the best platform that they can reach you out on?
The best platform probably would be they could check out my website. That's anywherehypnosis.com. But I always send people to Instagram of all places. Nice. Because I have a what I call the hypnotic test drive, and that's a free hypnosis experience that I give out every single Friday. I've worked on things like anxiety relief and building gratitude and overcoming limiting beliefs. If someone's never experienced hypnosis and wants to learn what it's all about, that's a great place to start. It's completely free and it's pretty low risk.
I appreciate that. So what is your social media?
Yes. Sorry. The handle is @makingyourmeaning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that we said earlier that you have a podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us why you started the podcast? Because I know my why. Well, it's your why.
Absolutely. So my handle is making your meaning because of the Making Meaning podcast. And I chose that name deliberately for two reasons. One was that when I was struggling with my own mental health, my therapist said this one line that has stuck with me for years afterwards. She said that we as humans are meaning-making creatures.
Okay.
We see the reality around us, and then we apply our own filters on it, and those filters tend to distort or shape what we actually perceive. What is an objective reality around us is objective reality, but we all have our own internal meanings of that. That's one avenue of it. And the other avenue is that I've found, as I've been searching for my own purpose and my own meaning in life, that it isn't something you find, it's something that you create. And so it's about making that meaning and crafting exactly it is what you want your life to look like. And so in this podcast, I interview adventurous people who have really stepped into that leadership role of their life. And along the way, I find it really important to highlight their struggles that they've overcome. Because when I started out, I felt there was such a divide between where they were and where I was. And I want to illustrate that it's just a continual process of taking the steps day by day that they've gotten there.
I appreciate that. And you said a lot, and I don't think a lot of people understood what you said, in the sense that it was very meaningfully. Like you felt, I like where you said that, you don't find your purpose, you technically kind of make your purpose. And I really love that, because I didn't think this podcast was my purpose. I just woke up one day and said, let me do a podcast. But with this podcast, I found joy. I found an opportunity to meet people like you. I found like a purpose in my life, and to a certain extent. Yeah. And with that said, is there anything you want to add before I let you go, or anything you want to say?
I would just say to listeners, whatever it is that you find that works for you, just stick with it, whether it's medication or therapy or yoga or just taking a walk. We all need a way to regulate our own emotions. And whether that's hypnosis or meditation or whatever it is, find something that you can use and really let it become a part of your life.
I like that. With that said, I want to say thank you very much for doing this podcast with me. I've learned a lot. In a sense, I wasn't aware what hypnosis was. Like, I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So again, thank you very much for being on this podcast with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired. And don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Own Way podcast. Have a good day, you guys.